I don't know when it started. Maybe when I was still too young to defend myself, but somewhere along the way, I became the family's favorite target. The useless one. The mistake, at first, it was little things, sarcastic comments when I struggled to tie my shoes, snickers when I tripped and fell. I thought it was normal. Doesn't every family tease? But as I grew older, the jokes sharpened into blades. When I brought home a C on a math test, my mother threw it onto the table and said with a laugh, "Maybe you should start practicing asking, 'Would you like fries with that?'" When I burned toast one morning, my father shook his head and muttered, "Hopeless. Completely hopeless." And Brian, my older brother by 2 years, was the worst. Every time I tried to join his conversations, his soccer practices, his world, he made sure I knew exactly where I stood. "Don't you have something useless to be doing?" he'd sneer. It wasn't just at home. At family gatherings, I became part of their comedy routines. "Oh, Monica? She's like furniture," my mom joked once. "You barely notice she's there unless she's in the way." Laughter. Always laughter. I laughed, too, sometimes. Fake. Tight. Because what else could I do? I told myself, one day they'll see me. One day they'll be proud, but deep down, some wounded part of me knew better. The party that changed everything was supposed to be a celebration. My father had gotten a small promotion at work, something he toasted to like he'd won a Nobel Prize. The backyard was strung with fairy lights. Neighbors, extended relatives, and co-workers milled around, balancing paper plates and plastic cups of cheap wine. I spent most of the evening refilling snack trays, picking up trash, and blending into the scenery like always. It happened near the bonfire, when the sun had dipped low and everyone was loose with drink. My father, with a half-empty beer bottle in hand, chuckled and said loud enough for the circle to hear, "You know, sometimes I wonder if we should have just put Monica up for adoption. Could have gotten a refund." A few people chuckled awkwardly, unsure. My mother, never one to miss a chance to twist the knife, added brightly, "We could still try. Maybe offer someone cash to take her off our hands." This time, the laughter was louder. Brian leaned in, grinning like the punchline was too good to pass up. "Hey, maybe Uncle Vincent will take her," he jeered. "He's rich. He can afford a useless charity case," and the laughter roared. It was different this time. No one was pretending it was harmless. It was cruel and sharp and real. I stood there frozen, the paper plate in my hands crumpling under my grip. My face felt like it was on fire. I wanted to disappear. Melt into the grass. Anything to escape the wall of sneering faces. A lump rose in my throat so fast it hurt, but I forced it down. I would not cry. Not here. Not for them. I was about to bolt inside when I heard it. A voice. Deep. Firm. Cold. "I think that's an excellent idea." The laughter died instantly. Like someone had snatched the oxygen from the night air. Heads turned. Mouths gaped. And standing there, at the edge of the patio lights, was someone I hadn't seen in almost 10 years. Uncle Vincent. If my family looked stunned, it was nothing compared to how I felt. Uncle Vincent. The myth. The ghost. The black sheep who'd left town after a fight so vicious that my father still grumbled about it over burnt bacon and beer-fueled rants. I hadn't seen him since I was maybe 6 years old. Too young to understand why he left or why we were never allowed to speak his name at home. Yet here he was. Solid. Real. Wearing a tailored gray suit that somehow didn't look out of place even in our scrappy backyard. He looked straight at my father, his face unreadable, except for the faintest glint of disgust in his piercing blue eyes. "If you don't want Monica," Vincent said, his voice cutting through the night like a blade, "I'll take her." For a heartbeat, no one moved. The only sound was the crackling of the bonfire. My father recovered first, clearing his throat awkwardly and forcing a brittle laugh. "Come on, Vincent. We were just joking. Family jokes. You know how it is." Vincent's smile was icy. I know cruelty when I hear it. My mother's face turned a shade paler. She tried to salvage it with a breathy giggle. Oh, we all love Monica. She's just a bit of a late bloomer. Brian looked like he wished the ground would swallow him whole, but Vincent ignored them all. His gaze shifted to me. Softened. Monica, he said, his voice gentler now, would you like to come with me? I stared at him, heart pounding so hard I could barely hear over the blood rushing in my ears. Go with him? Leave. My eyes darted briefly to my parents, to the people who had made it painfully clear what they thought of me. Their faces, for once, were filled not with anger or disdain, but fear. Fear of losing something they never cared to protect. Good. I swallowed hard, my throat dry as paper, and nodded. Yes, I croaked. I'd like that. He smiled then, really smiled, and held out his hand. Without another glance at my so-called family, I walked across the grass, took his hand in mine, and followed him out the gate. I heard my mother's voice rising behind us, shrill with panic. But you can't just take her. She's ours. She's our daughter. Vincent didn't even look back. Then you should have treated her like one. The gate swung shut behind us with a satisfying click, sealing the end of my old life. As Vincent led me to his sleek black car, a sleek Jaguar that gleamed under the streetlights, I felt something strange stir in my chest. Hope. Real, trembling hope. He opened the passenger door for me like I was someone important. Like I mattered. As I buckled in, he started the engine and said casually, "You're safe now, Monica. You're coming home," and for the first time I could remember. I believed it. The ride from the party was mostly silent, except for the low hum of the engine and the occasional tap of Uncle Vincent's fingers against the steering wheel. I stared out the window, watching the streetlights blur past, feeling strangely weightless, like I was floating somewhere between my old life and something brand new. Finally, he spoke. "They don't deserve you," he said quietly. My throat tightened, but I managed a small nod. I didn't have the words yet. How could I explain years of small wounds that never healed? How could I explain the hollow space inside me they had carved out? "You don't have to go back there," he added. "Not if you don't want to." Something about the certainty in his voice made me believe it. We pulled into the circular driveway of a huge stone house nestled on a hill just outside town. It was like something out of a dream, sprawling gardens, massive oak doors, warm lights spilling from tall windows. He lived here? He really was rich. And somehow, he wanted me. When we stepped inside, I half expected the spell to break, for him to change his mind. Instead, he showed me a room, my room, bigger than my entire old bedroom, painted a soft blue, with a window seat and shelves already lined with books. "Make yourself comfortable," he said. "You're home now." That night, as I curled into the unfamiliar softness of the bed, I realized I wasn't just sleeping in a new place. I was sleeping in a new life. But the next morning, reality and legality came crashing in. Over breakfast, Vincent explained carefully. "I can't just take you, Monica," he said, pouring syrup over a stack of golden pancakes. "There are procedures. Papers to sign." My heart plummeted. "You mean I have to go back?" He smiled reassuringly. "Only for a little while. And trust me, I'll handle them." And he did. The meeting was set 2 days later at a lawyer's office downtown. My parents arrived late, as always, my father in his wrinkled work shirt, my mother clinging to her handbag like a lifeline, Brian trailing behind looking sour. They looked around the marble-floored lobby with thinly veiled resentment, like they didn't belong. And they knew it. Vincent stood when they entered, every inch the imposing, self-assured man they had once tried to erase from their lives. "Sit," he said coolly, nodding toward the conference table. My parents exchanged glances but obeyed. The lawyer, a polished woman named Ms. Dalton, greeted them with a tight smile and laid out the papers. "This meeting is to formalize Monica's guardianship transfer to Mr. Vincent Carter," she said crisply. He has filed the necessary paperwork. Given Monica's testimony and documented evidence of neglect, the process can proceed with your signatures. Neglect. The word hung in the air like a loaded gun. My mother sputtered. Neglect? We fed her. We put a roof over her head. Vincent leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping to a dangerously soft murmur. You humiliated her. Belittled her. Publicly discussed giving her away like garbage. His eyes glittered with cold fury. I have witnesses. I have video. He tapped his phone lightly against the table. Half your drunken party guests heard you offer your own daughter for adoption. My father's face flushed an ugly shade of red. You can't threaten us, he barked. Vincent smiled, slow and lethal. Threaten, he repeated. No. I'm offering you an opportunity. You sign the papers. Monica lives a life you could never provide. You fight me. He paused, savoring it. And I'll make sure the authorities know exactly what kind of parents you are. Including Monica's old school records. Doctor visits. The times she was left alone, my mother opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again like a fish gasping for air. You think a child services investigation would be fun for you? Vincent asked silkily, and, Ms. Dalton added without missing a beat, given Mr. Carter's extensive resources, I assure you, he will win. There it was. Checkmate, for the first time in my life. I saw my parents speechless. Cornered. Small. I should have felt sad. I should have felt guilty. Instead, I felt powerful. After a long, tense silence, my father grabbed the pen with a muttered curse and scrawled his signature across the papers. My mother followed, her hands trembling. Brian just sat there glaring at me like I had somehow betrayed them. Them. As if they had ever been worthy of loyalty. When the last paper was signed, Ms. Dalton gathered them up neatly. Congratulations, Monica, she said, smiling at me. It's official. I blinked, the words slow to register. Official. I belonged to someone who wanted me. Vincent stood and offered me his hand again, just like he had at the party. Without hesitation, I took it. We walked past my old family without another word. As we reached the door, I glanced back once. My parents looked stunned, like gamblers who had just realized they bet the house and lost. Brian looked furious. Good. They had gambled me away, laughing. They hadn't expected me to win. But I had. I was free. Moving into Uncle Vincent's house felt like stepping into a different world, a world where the walls didn't echo with insults, where I wasn't treated like an inconvenience or a burden. But even here, in this beautiful, quiet place, the ghosts of my old life clung to me. At first, I walked softly, like any noise might shatter the peace. I folded my laundry in perfect squares. I asked permission for everything, to open the fridge, to sit on the couch, to use the garden out back. Old habits die hard. One evening, about a week after the adoption was finalized, Uncle Vincent found me sitting on the floor of my massive closet, knees pulled to my chest. I thought he would be angry. Instead, he just sat down across from me, adjusting his expensive suit without a care for the dust. You know, he said casually, this closet is bigger than the bedroom your father grew up in. I looked up, startled. He used to cry when he thought nobody could hear, Vincent continued, his voice gentle. Your grandparents were cruel. Especially to him. I blinked, trying to reconcile the man I knew, the bully who had sneered at me, with the scared little boy Vincent described. People who are hurt sometimes turn into people who hurt, Vincent said. It's not an excuse. But it is a reason. I stared at my knees. Was I supposed to forgive them? Was that what he was saying? He must have seen the conflict in my face, because he smiled, not the sharp, intimidating smile he used at the lawyer's office, but something softer. You don't owe them anything. He said simply. Healing is for you. Not for them. I swallowed hard. No one had ever told me that before. Little by little, the walls inside me started to crack. Vincent didn't smother me with rules. He didn't expect anything. But he noticed everything. When he realized I liked to read, he took me to a massive bookstore and told me to pick anything I wanted. When he noticed me sketching absent-mindedly on napkins, he bought me real art supplies. When I mentioned, offhandedly, that I used to love swimming before my parents said it was pointless, he arranged for a heated pool to be cleaned and opened. One afternoon, he handed me a small, leather-bound journal. "For your thoughts," he said. "The ones you don't want to say out loud yet." The gesture made my chest ache. For the first time, I began to believe I was allowed to dream. To exist. To take up space without apologizing. Of course, it wasn't all easy. Sometimes, when Vincent praised me, told me he was proud, the words felt like lies. I would flinch inside, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Waiting for the mockery, the cruelty that always used to follow kindness. But it never came. Vincent was patient. He waited through my silences, my bad days, my backslides into fear and self-doubt. Slowly, I realized I wasn't waiting for him to change. I was the one who needed time to believe that love, real love, didn't have to hurt. A few months later, the town held its annual spring gala, a big event that attracted all the wealthiest, most influential families in the area. Vincent asked if I wanted to go. At first, I laughed. The idea was ridiculous. Me, at some fancy event, wearing a gown, making polite conversation, I wasn't built for that. But Vincent didn't push. He just said, "Think about it," and to my own surprise, I did. Part of me wanted to show them, all of them, that the girl they threw away wasn't worthless. That she could stand tall, even among people who used to sneer down at her. So I said yes. The dress Vincent picked out for me was breathtaking. A deep emerald green that made my skin glow and my eyes look bright. The first time I saw myself in the mirror, I barely recognized the girl staring back. I looked strong, worthy, alive. When we arrived at the gala, the entire room seemed to pause. Heads turned. Whispers started. I spotted my parents across the room almost immediately. They had somehow wrangled invitations, probably clinging to what little social standing they had left. Their eyes widened when they saw me on Vincent's arm, dressed like someone who belonged. My mother's mouth actually dropped open. I felt a surge of satisfaction so sharp it was almost dizzying. This time, I had the power. Throughout the evening, people came up to greet us. Vincent introduced me proudly. "This is Monica, my niece." Every time he said it, my heart swelled a little more. People treated me differently now. They saw Vincent's name, his wealth, his reputation, and they adjusted their attitudes accordingly. It was infuriating how shallow it all was. But it was also exhilarating. I wasn't invisible anymore. I was someone. At one point, Brian slunk over, trying to act casual. "You think you're better than us now," he muttered under his breath when no one was looking. I met his eyes steadily. "No," I said. "I always was. You just refuse to see it." He flushed, furious, but didn't dare say more. "Not here. Not with Vincent watching from across the room like a hawk." Later that night, standing on the grand balcony under the stars, Vincent came up beside me. "You did well tonight," he said. I smiled. For once, I believed it. "I feel different," I admitted. "Lighter, you are," he said. "You're shedding their lies." I looked out over the glittering city below, feeling the wind tug at my hair. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving. I was living. Becoming. And I wasn't going to let anyone make me small ever again. Years later, when I officially took over Vincent Enterprises, Uncle Vincent retired for good, smiling proudly as he passed me the reins. "I always knew," he said. "You were never meant to be small," and he was right. Today, I run one of the most successful companies in the country. I sponsor scholarships, fund shelters, and create opportunities for kids like me, kids who were told they were worthless. And every day, I wake up grateful. Not for the money. Not for the power. But for the second chance. The chance to become who I was always meant to be. And it all started the night someone finally said, "I'll take her."